Welcome everybody, I'm Connor. I am our Wix programs manager for our managed partners. We have a lovely workshop today focused on structured data, and we have two wonderfully knowledgeable SEO experts here on the call that'll be running through. I'll be our moderator today. So again, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. Happy to pause either Crystal or Sean as they're going. We also have a Q&A afterwards. So with that being said, Crystal is our head of SEO communications here at Wix. You probably heard her name before or seen her face on a webinar at some point. She has been in the SEO world for 15 years with SEO and digital marketing. A lot of her clients previously include Disney, McDonald's, Tommy. She lives and breathes SEO, if I haven't made that clear enough already. But she's been featured in the Google Search Central, Brighton SEO, Moz, Deep Crawl, SEMrush, and I believe Crystal has her own blog as well that she'll post fun stuff on. So make sure you give her a follow. And we have Sean Delgado. He is our product advisor focusing in SEO specialty. He's has 9 years of experience, along with a passion to help our partners stay up to date on industry topics. And then also we'll run one-on-one sessions. So if you have a success manager, definitely reach out to them to get that scheduled. It's a really awesome use of time. You know, we can do very deep dives. We can focus on specific situations. Sean, of course, can give a bit more background on that maybe a little bit later. But yeah, with that being said, we're going to kick it off, and we'll cover a handful of topics here from, you know, what is structured data? Why do you want to make sure that's in use on your Wix sites? How to validate and also use structured data within Wix. Like I said, we'll be doing a live build. And then, of course, our Q&A session afterwards, given the time, and all of our fun resources that we'll talk about today. So I'm going to pass it over to Sean, who will kick us off. And again, if you have any questions, throw those in the chat. I'll be monitoring and make sure everybody gets some answers.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Connor. And good to see everybody here. Looking forward to talking some structured data today. So let's just start off with answering what is structured data. So I know it's kind of a little bit of a daunting topic or a daunting task at first when you hear about it or see it or read about it. So what structured data is at its simplest form is a standardized format for providing information about a page and classifying that page's content. So this image at the bottom really does a good job at just kind of visualizing it a bit, where you have data that is on a page, content that is on a page that could just be scattered all over. You utilize JSON LD or other different formats, we'll talk about that in a few, to then structure that data, just to make it a little bit easier for a site crawler to read and make it a little bit easier for it to be understood. So an example of this would be a recipe page. You know, there's so much information on a recipe page, talking about the ingredients, the cooking time, temperature, calories, so many aspects. What structured data does and allows you to do is to take all of that information, make it a little bit easier for a site crawler to understand and read. Why is structured data important? A number of different reasons, but adding structured data can enable what we consider rich results. And rich results allow the content on your page or just the website itself to be a little bit more engaging to users. It might encourage a user to click on your content or page on the search engine results page if it stands out in a different way. With that being said, not all structured data provides rich results, but it's still good to add structured data to help Google or any site crawler, for that matter, to better understand the content on that page, better classify it, essentially. This is just a visualization, just to make it a little bit easier to see what this means. So on the left-hand side, you'll see what the web page actually looks like for an event. The middle is what that structured data shows and what is being pulled from this content to then be crawled by a site crawler. And on the right-hand side is that rich result. You can see up at the top of the events section, that March 17th event. shows in this way. It's a little bit easier for a user to see as opposed to just the classic blue link, meta title, meta description. This shows as a rich result where it might get someone's attention to click on that quicker than just that classic blue link. Here are a few case studies that are done. I'm not going to go through every single one, but breezing through these, you can see just how important adding structured data to a page can be. For example, Rotten Tomatoes added structured data to 100,000 unique pages, and it measured a 25% higher click-through rate for pages enhanced with structured data compared to those without. So just that simple fact of adding structured data to a page, and there's various different types of structured data that you can add. We'll touch upon that as well. But if there's a way that you can add structured data to a page and it makes sense, it's always recommended to do so because you can see an uplift like these companies have seen. How Google uses structured data. So Google uses structured data to better understand, like I mentioned, the content on the page, as well as just gather information about the web as a whole. Not just about your page, but it just helps it better categorize different types of content across the internet. And while structured data gives that content a chance to display as rich results, it's never a guarantee. So it's not saying, hey, this is definitely going to work. This is definitely going to have you display in that event style. It's also not a ranking factor. So again, because you have structured data on that page does not mean that your site will just shoot up the rankings, but it's a nice to have. If you can do it, I recommend doing it. And there are some pages that it's highly recommended to add these for. For example, recipes, as you can see here, makes it a lot easier to see, read, and click. Things like job postings, things like events, products. These are types of pages that you really do want to have structured data added to. This is just another visual on ways that you can display. And it is important to note that you can display as a rich result as well as a text result. So up at the top, you can see that vegan chocolate cake by BBC Good Food. And then that first text result is also that vegan chocolate cake recipe. So it gives you a lot more real estate on the search results page. While you can be visualized in that rich result style, you can also still pop up as that classic text. When to use it. Being that structured data describes the content on the page, you really only want to add pieces of structured data to a page where the content is visible to the user. So you don't want to add structured data to a blank page just to try and trick a site crawler. You only want to add structured data if the information that is within that structured data is visible within the content on that page. So it's really important to note that you don't want to add it just to add it, only add it if it enhances that content. Supported formats. So the one you probably will see most likely, and the one that is recommended, is JSON LD. In general, Google recommends using JSON LD. It's a little bit easier to set up. It's a little bit easier for site crawlers to implement. So that is why it is recommended, and that is what Wix uses on websites as well. There is microdata as well as RFDA. Again, while you can utilize those, mostly what we're going to be dealing with is JSON LD. So that's the one that we always promote to use. Wix and structured data. So Wix automatically adds structured data to a number of different pages as you build out pages on your website. There are ways you can add structured data manually. There are ways you can then still even edit these out of the box pieces of structured data that Wix provides for you. And we'll go into that in a bit. But I do want to just make it known that Wix automatically adds structured data to save you time and just make life a lot easier as you continue to build out a bunch of sites. So here's just a few different pages that you can see structured data on that Wix automatically implements. If you use Wix stores, product pages have product markup. Wix blog posts have article markup. Forums have forum markup, so on and so forth. Local business markups as well on home pages if you work with local businesses that have a brick and mortar location. So there's a number of different pages that you can see. And if you go into the advanced SEO tab, if there is a little icon underneath or next to any of those pieces of structured data, that is what is added by Wix. Here is another way that you can see what is the predefined structured data markup that Wix has. So when you go into the dashboard and when you go into your SEO settings section, even up top, you can see the breadcrumbs of SEO settings. And then within there, you can click on a certain type of page type to view that structured data markup, which you can see right there. So in this case, this is under products. So you can see that there's that automatic product markup that is added for every single product page if you're using Wix stores. And then even if you click further into that product markup, you can then see what that markup preset looks like. And this is using a bunch of different variables, and these variables are pulling directly from how you fill out that specific product page. So on that product page, however you put that name is what is going to be pulling into this name field in the markup. So on and so forth for each of these sections. So if you just want to get an idea of what is being pulled into each of these markup presets, you can take a look into this settings section and see, all right, what do I need to fill out? What needs to be there? And this is all done in accordance to best practices by Google. So Wix always continues to update this if there's any changes within, documentation. Wix will then update this for you. So it's nothing that you need to worry about there. There are ways that you can convert this to custom markup. If you want to go forth and maybe make changes, add a section in here, which we'll touch upon in a bit, you can do so. And that is right underneath here where you see convert to custom markup. But for the most part, everything here is great by default and nothing you really need to worry about. If you see something like that missing info section, it's something to keep in mind. Wix, like I mentioned, will have all required fields filled out, or at least sections that need to be filled out in that code. But if there's a section or a variable that is not filled out that is required, you'll see this pop up. So for example, this article blog posting markup, it's saying that this markup can appear as a rich result without a logo or business name. You can add this in the business information section. So if in the business information section, one of these fields are missing, definitely recommend going into that, making that change, updating that, and then this should disappear if everything is filled out properly. So if there's something that is missing, if there's something that's needed, we'll always make that known. So you can go and optimize that as much as you can. And then I will pass this on to Crystal to take it a little bit further, to go into validating structured data markup and talk about a few other things that you can do within Wix if you want to continue to optimize your structured data. Chris, I believe you're also muted. The classic.
Just a second. Sorry. Okay.
No.
All right. Let me move over to here. I'm going to move this one to this. You guys, I mean, I was just giving my train of thought, really. So just a second. I'm going to share my screen. Go share. Slideshow. Okay. So we're going to talk about structured data validation. So what is validation? Validation is super important. I've written a whole article about structured data validation because it's that important. It can really mean the difference between like whether your schema works or whether it doesn't work, or whether it adds value or not. So it's a really important step. And basically it's this step of making sure that it's valid and that it works and that it's readable by a machine. When we go through, we see that in order to validate, there's a couple of different ways. So you can use a schema validator that will help to look for parsability, identify errors, verify that it can be read by machines. And you can either test the code or you can test the URL. So if you haven't launched the website, for instance, and the page is not live yet, you can test your code. If you have launched the website and the page is live, then you can test the URL. You can also use this for looking at competitors, which I will talk about later as well. But which is super useful when you're trying to figure out your schema markup strategy. Errors to look out for, parsing errors. These can happen when you have the wrong kind of where you have the wrong code in there. For instance, you have a comma in the wrong place, or you have too many commas, or you have or you're using the wrong curly braces, or that sort of thing. Then there's also warnings, and a warning tends to be like a nice to have. So a warning, for instance, for like a shopping thing might be something that has to do with like the GTIN, for instance, if you've seen that on there. If you don't have a GTIN for the custom candles that you have on your candle making website, then that's fine. they have that at, they'll send it to you as a warning, because if you're selling iPhones, for instance, that does have a GTIN. So Google will tell you these warnings, will recommend these to you, but they're generally, but you know, they generally rely on you to use your brain to figure out what's best for you. So take the warnings as a recommendation rather than a requirement. And you can always, you might not need them just now, but you might be able to think about them in the future. The thing you should think about, though, is errors. If you see an error on your structured data, that means that you probably can't use it. That means that it might be that that Google will read the code up to a certain point and then stop, or it might be that they won't be able to read the entire code at all. So that's something that you definitely need to fix. If Google Search Console is seeing that you have errors, that's a problem. If when you're using a validator tool like they have on schema.org, and I'll show you a bunch more later on, and that has an error, you need to fix that straight away before you move on. So there's lots of different ways to validate. I have an article on the Wix SEO Learning Hub, which I have a link to in this document, and I'll mention before. But there's single page validation tools. So it might be that, let's say you want to validate your product category. One way to do that, if you have, 7 million products or 700 products, and you don't want to spend every single day validating every single product, is you might validate one page on your product collection, and you can use one of these tools to do that. So validator.schema.org is one where you drag and drop your thing. ChatGPT can help you with code inspection, but won't necessarily be able to crawl the page and things. Test.schema.dev is a good one as well. I'll show that later. That can help you prettify code so you can see where you can read it more easily. There's a few others as well. Rich results testing tool is one that people get stuck on a little bit. So if you see rich results testing tool and you don't see certain schema showing up there, that's because it's only looking at rich results. And as Sean said, and I'll discuss a little bit later, there are over 800 schema markup types. Google doesn't have a rich result for every single one, but the rich result tool will tell you if the code that you have is eligible for a rich result. It doesn't promise you that you'll get one, but it tells you if you're eligible. But if the code that the schema that you have isn't eligible for a rich result, it won't show up on the rich result tool. So again, I go into the details of that on my article, so that's worth looking at. But these tools are useful for helping you do that. Sean also talked about the validator tool that's in Wix SEO, which, if you've got a comma out of place, it won't let you submit the code. That's the same in Velo as well. And if you're doing bulk validation, for instance, if you have got a new client and they have some schema markup that's live on their website, you can use one of these tools to assess what's working, what's in place. So the Wix site inspection tool will tell you which rich results are valid on Google Search Console, and you can see that in the panel. And this SEMrush markup report will also show you with whether you have so Sean talked about microdata. It will show you if you have like OG data, microdata, any of that kind of thing as well. Google Search Console's URL inspection also shows you these as well. And Screaming Frog, which is a really cost-effective paid tool, will also show you, and you can crawl the whole site and see what things are looking like. They mentioned optional versus required. Basically, when you're going through your structured data and you're validating things, you will see something and it'll say critical issue not detected. That's a nice to have, right? That's a nice to have. That doesn't mean that your schema markup isn't valid. It is valid. That's what the green tick is for. But this is something that Google is interested in, and that if you have it, you should add it. If you don't have it, don't worry about it, but maybe put it on the list for when you've got some free time. If you see this error, and this says property business name is not recognized by the schema, that means you need to fix that. So that means that you've got the wrong type in there, and you need to fix that and change that to something that's correct. So where you see non-critical issues detected, don't worry about those. And these are really useful for the validation process. So once everything is valid, and when you're going through your site, let's say you either got a new client and you're auditing, or you're adding schema, you check that everything's valid. Once it's valid and it's live, you want to measure the effects. So you want to know if it's working. So take some time and take some pages on your site that aren't using structured data, and you can get some data on them in Google Search Console. Then you can start thinking about adding structured data to those pages, and then keep track and compare the performance. So in Google Search Console, if you get something that has access to rich results, and within the enhancements reports, you can see that. So for instance, there's shopping, and then there's enhancements, and you can see more there as well. You can see which ones are valid. So where they're valid, you can see that those are working there, and you can also see those in the Wix site inspection tool. So here you can see that these products have valid rich results, structured data. And you can track that over time. You can also track whether or not you've seen whether or not it's been implemented and whether or not it's working well within the SEMrush markup site audit. So you can see how many pages have structured data, and then you can track your performance before and after the implementation. And I'm going to pause there because I went through that a little bit quickly because I talked quickly, and I can see some messages there. Is everybody okay with the validation measuring section?
Crystal, it looked like we had one question about structured data for dynamic pages. Is that something?
I'm going to get to that.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that in just a second. So for the building part, if I'm gonna, I don't know if I can take a quick survey on how are we doing on time?
Yeah, we're still good on
Good
time.
Okay, great. So in that case, I'm going to try to have a couple of goes at looking at we have some things that we can have a go at directly, and we also have some things that I can share with you. So I'm going to do a little bit of both, if you'll bear with me, and I might have to jump around on screens to make this happen. So, so when we think about building structured data, you need to do three things. First, you need to identify your needs. Then you need to find the best tool for the job, and then you need to implement and monitor. So we talked about the implementing and monitor. That includes the validation and all of that stuff. So you want to identify your structured data needs. As I said, there's over 800 different schema markup types. And when we send you this document, I'll send you this is a link to the list of all of the different types. And it gets pretty granular. Like you can get down to like a pond, right? You can get down to a waterfall. So a place, which is a landform, which is a body of water, which is a waterfall like Niagara. It gets that granular. And you may or may not need to identify every single pond on Earth. But you need to think about what's required for you and your clients. So this is a good framework that I tend to think about. So there's going to be a different schema that do different things. So if your strategic objective is to increase your brand awareness, then you might want to think about things like local business markup, or blog posting, or your logo, for instance, which actually has a lot of applicable applications to a lot of other things, for instance. All of this supports your overall SEO and marketing and branding strategy. So when you have your good local business markup, you could potentially get a knowledge panel for your business, like a local business panel, and that supports your local SEO, your knowledge graph, your NAP, which is name, address, phone number, and can be great for businesses that are highly active on social because it helps bring all of those things together. If you're looking to increase leads, or your client is looking to increase leads, you want stuff that has conversion built into it. So things like product markup, which works with your product marketing feed with Google Merchant Center, and you should link those two up. If you're not, you definitely should. Event markup, which helps with listings that are on your page, but also listings that are across the web. So if you have things on Eventbrite and other event listings, then when somebody Googles, the bake sale, they will pull through all of the listings. Google will pull through all of the listings for that bake sale onto the same one, and they'll have different links out to the different sites, including yours if you have schema markup. So again, this supports your content optimization, your keyword tactics, all that sort of stuff. If you're particularly in the local sector, and I know a lot of people work with a lot of local clients, you want to think about image metadata profile pages, which are really good for EEAT, reviews, which are great for local business as well. Again, this supports lots of things like dedicated rich results, for SERP features, supports CRO, on-page SEO, all that sort of stuff. And I've got an asterisk next to the ones that are built into Wix. So think about the ones what you need. And then also you want to have a little bit of a user journey thing. So go and Google some of your key terms and see if there's rich results showing up for there. Because if they are, then this is definitely high priority. And if you're talking to clients about this, showing them this can really seal the deal for getting them buy-in on you doing this. So once you have this thing, you will essentially understand which category you're in. If you are not visible on rich results for your key terms, then you are a structured data challenger. That means you need to take steps to become more competitive within the SERP features that are existing, right? That means you need to catch up. If you are visible, then that means that you're a trailblazer. That means that you can be proactive and you can add updates to your schema markup to improve the current understanding that Google has of your website and to prepare for future features. And when I say that, that's because Google adds more structured data all the time. They added courses last year. They added some stuff for other things as well. They recently updated their product markup to include schema rich results for multiple images for products. And Wix took a trailblazer approach and had already added in structured data for all of those images for multiple product pages. And so when Google rolled out that update, we were already prepared, right? So this is, if you're a challenger, that's because, you know, you're catching up with everybody. But if you've already done that, if you're feeling confident and you want to blaze your own trail, you can do that too. So just figure out which one you are. And sometimes you might be one for one category and not for the other. So that's fine too. The rules: validate everything. Sean went through a lot of these as well, but like validate everything. If you're finding trouble with some of the validation, one of the things that's important is like things like case sensitivity for some of the types can come into place. Again, structured data should always reflect what's on the page. Audit before and after migrations is really important because sometimes if you're switching things, the structured data doesn't always go over. So that's really useful. Plan for the schema as you design your pages as well. I've seen this from a few different folks, and basically I'll go through this as well when we're looking at things, but when you have different elements, think like, oh, that can go in this schema and that can go in that schema and that can go in that schema. So think about that as you're planning. And review a couple of times a year because, again, Google updates which structured data is valid. So they recently put out profile page, and they used to have about page, and now they have a profile page one. So I recently just updated my own blog to include profile page instead of about page. So that's something that's worth doing. And also, again, be careful with quotation marks. Not only is curly braces and straight braces different, or straight quotation marks different, but also if you have a quote in your title, for instance, for your blog, it might break the schema for the whole page. So be careful with quotation marks. Okay, so all that said, what do challengers need if you're catching up? So first of all, review the warnings in Google Search Console. That will help. That will tell you a lot, and that will tell you what Google's most concerned about. Check your competitors on the SERP. I talked a little bit about that already. And then use the validators. I talked about some of those validators, and you can put any URL in there. So if you see a competitor and you're like, why are they showing on this page and I'm not? You can go to one of the structured data validators, and you can see that you can see what they're doing, and you can compare, and then you can compare your markup with theirs to get up to speed. So these are some of the tools, and now I'm going to do the fun thing of switching around to some of the things. So for the auditing, I talked about Google Search Console and search validators. I'm just going to show you one. Let me see if I can escape. You guys can see how many tabs I have open, which is like 1.5 million. So this is something called schema.dev. I use it for like prettyfying and stuff like that. I'm going to duplicate this. And it basically, like, it can prettyfy your code for you, but you can also use it. Oh no, not this one. Sorry, not this one. This one. Sorry, this one. It can. So that one I use for code. This one you can use it to run a test. So this is a URL that I entered in, and then I can see all of I can see all of the code. So I can see all of the SEO meta tags for this, and I can see the structured data as well. So this is pulling through the full code for the full page. And I can see that this is the structured data on this page. If this was one of my competitors, I could go, oh, what you doing? And then I could say, oh, I'll have a bit of that. Oh, I'll have a little bit of that as well. I can see this one. I can see what they're doing, and I can go, oh, okay, that's why they have that particular page, and that's why they have that particular rich result. So that's super useful. I've got user journey mapping in there. Again, this is an article that we have in the Wix SEO Hub, which talks about user journey mapping, which is really, really useful. We have structured data guide on the thingy as well. So just go back to the slideshow. So we also have, yeah, structured data in the Wix SEO guide, because if you're sort of starting on this journey, this is a really useful one. And we also have the KB on doing structured data there. And then we're going to get to generators. So if you are a challenger and you're trying to get up to speed, you want to think about a structured data generator, like they have at Merkle, like they have at Rank Ranger, like they have video schema. And essentially, oh, sorry. And essentially, these will help you to get started with those. So you'll want to think about your Wix ones, and you want to think about your structured data generators. And then there's also libraries of structured data that you can use to update what you've got going on and to review what other people are doing. This one, I'm going to click to this. So this structured data gallery is super, super useful. This is Google's it used to be called the Rich Results Gallery. And basically you can go through and they will tell you all of the stuff. So if I clicked on article, for instance, this will give me an example of an article markup. And it will also give me, you a breakdown, and this is how you read this, of the recommended properties that they expect, and best practice. And some of them have required properties. So for instance, if I go to product, this will give you lots of information here. Where is it? So this is the example, and this is another example, and they will have required properties. So you see that this is a required property here. Some of them have required properties, some of them have recommended properties. If it has a required property, you absolutely have to include it, especially if you're creating it from scratch. Okay, so in order of complication, if you're using the Wix structured data defaults, like Sean said, they're all valid, and we created them to make sure that they're valid for everybody, right? But they're built into the page type. So if you add schema, so you will add schema when you add new page types. So if you have events on your Wix website, but you don't have the events on using Wix events, then you won't get that automated schema markup. You need to add the page type. So Wix blogs have appropriate schema. Wix video has appropriate schema. Wix events has appropriate schema. So when you add those types, you will be adding that optimization to it. So that's one way to do it. And again, if you put an event on a blog, which you may very well do, you won't necessarily, you won't get event schema automatically. You will need to build that separately and add that to that blog. You can have an event on a blog. That's totally fine. You can have a video on a blog, but you would have to add that in. If you modify your Wix structured data, you can always change it back. So don't be afraid. If you're trying to get started with structured data, this is a great thing for you, because you can try it, and if it all goes wrong, you can just default. You can just go back to the default. And also, you're going to want to review your variables to make sure that they're doing to see what you can add, see what can be dynamic, and make custom updates to make your content more optimized. So for example, this is one that I did. This is the blog markup. The blog markup on Wix is great. It's fantastic. It's wonderful. I love it. One thing that I found, though, was that if you add image metadata that says creator, type, and then you name the creator, then you can get image metadata, rich results information in Google Search Console. So on this Wix thing that I was doing, I added it and said the creator was Wix, because every single image that was on there that was the header image for the blog was one of our own. Now, we don't have this built into the default because that's not the case for everybody. Sometimes people use stock photography or whatever. But for this particular case, I was able to hard code that in, and that's just a little update that I added to that particular bit of structured data. And then I was able to see this in the backend in Google Search Console because I made that update. So if you want to do that, then what you would do is you would go into SEO settings, click customize defaults, preview the preset, convert to custom markup, and that's this one here. And then from here, like I said, have a look at the variables. So one of the things I found was I scrolled down to business variables and I found logo. Now this says this is for a product, for instance, and let's say I wanted to add the under organization, I wanted to add the logo for the website. So let's say my custom candle website has a logo, and I wanted to add that to it. I would name the markup, which is super important. So that you can remember what you did and why you did it. It's also, if you're working with multiple people, it's useful to add your initials. So I have CC item thingy so that people know that I'm the one who made that markup, so that if somebody else goes in there, they can go, Crystal, what is this markup? I don't understand what this is. So that's super useful. edit the markup to suit your needs, save and validate. Like I said, always validate. So this is the before, where it was like this, and it said seller type, organization, et cetera, logo. Now logo is unique on Wix because we have that built into the CMS. So you have to add your business detail logos, or under business details in the CMS, you have to go and find your business details. And if you don't add the logo there, then the logo variable won't show up. This is again why you need to validate, because when I first validated this, it said no schema in that. So make sure that you validate that. Now, afterwards, I just added literally like this line. So you have to add the comma so you don't break it. And then I added logo, insert logo. And when I did that, I was able to change this one. So this page had organization, name, Women in the Stars, same as, et cetera, organization, Women in the Stars, and then here's the logo image. So that's one little piece of code that you're able to add, and then that updates that for all of your products, and it has the logo for who you are as a seller, which adds a little bit of more updates for you. Schema markup generators are another one, so that allow you to do that. So I've got a few listed here. These are some good ones. So with this one, for instance, you can copy and paste and add in some details. And then this one is one for video. If you wanted to have a go with this, I don't know how people are feeling for time or if we're okay with this. I think I've still got a few more to go, so I think I might move along. But essentially, if you go to video schema, you pop a YouTube video in there, it will spit out all the schema, and then you can copy and paste it into the structured data section. Is that all right for everyone? Okay. So yeah, you would follow those sections. You would click add markup, and then you would add that in, and then you would be able to see the markup there that you've created. Common combinations include like adding a recipe to a blog post, adding a video object to a blog, adding an event maybe to a blog. For instance, if you were talking about an event, for instance, that might be one as well. Okay, so trailblazers, right? So let's say you're blazing a brand new path. You want to look at Google Search Central for ideas. I showed you that page. That's a great one. You want to look at the Schema Apps Path tool. I'll show you this one as well. So this one's really useful. So for instance, if you were to think about like accommodation, and then you were to look at, because there's so many different types. So if you were to look at like accommodation, and then can I find H? High school? Hostel, right? And then you can find, then this will take you a path. So accommodation has a property contained within place in which hotel, which inherits from hotel. So this tells you like the relationship that the things contain. So basically, if I go to accommodation on schema.org, then you can see, then I can find, sorry, hotel. And then it says like, and then it will have the information about it within it as well. So it will tell you the information about it. And you can go through all of that sort of stuff, but it saves you trawling through all of the ones and go through it as well. So that was super useful. And then yeah, the schema.org vlog will tell you the new ones as well as they're coming out as well. And as I said, every time they release a new one, they tell you what's going on. So for Trailblazers, it's useful to carry out an audit for all of your structured data. And again, using tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, they give you lots of information about that. Resources include schema.org, which can be a little bit technical, but it's really, really useful. Google Search Central structured data search gallery is super useful as well. And then we can get through lots of that. So in terms of schema tools, Wix has schema tools that are useful for you, like the IDE and Velo, which I'm sure y'all are familiar with. And then there's other tools as well. I'm going to show you a little bit of this. So in terms of the audit, one of the things you get from SEMrush is it will tell you lots of different types of SERP features, and will tell you like where you're ranking for the SERP features for current pages. So this one shows you linking to domain. This one will show you not linking to domain. Now, not all of these are rich results, but a lot of them are. So if you're looking for your rich results, it's a really good one to give you an idea from new clients of what you see. And then we're also going to talk about the dynamic pages. Okay. So within, and this comes through with the Velo one. So when we're talking about Wix schema tools, Wix Dynamic is super useful. We recently released an update that allows you to see this, and I'll go to the actual page as well to show you this shortly. But essentially the variables, it like we saw the variables with that logo one and with the product name and with the business name and all of that sort of stuff, they come from the CMS. So on this one, oh, I jumped ahead. On this one, I added a variable for model, right? So we have the title is Maserati, the model is Gran Turismo, like the Porsche 911, like the Mustang E-Mach. I'm making these up. I don't know about cars. Anyway, so I added in this variable, and then when I went to add a new markup, the variable is present there. So if you want to add a variable, and this is way easier than it was like old school Velo, you can add the variable into your data set within the CMS, and then you can use that as you're creating your markup. So for instance, on this one, I just did a simple one just so you can see the whole thing. I created custom schema for an item pages because you can't do it for the category page from this for the category page from this setup. But I basically created custom schema for the item pages using variable dynamic content like URLs and page titles. So I added in the primary title here and model here, which was one of the ones that I created. But all of these variables I built myself, or sorry, all of this code I built myself, and I added in these variables from the drop down there. And I'll just show you famous last words, what that looks like. So here we are. So this is the one that I built, and basically like I added in all of these elements. So these were all different ones, and I built the code, and then I added in elements. So if I wanted to make it type web page, if I wanted to write a different one, so I could say like blog posting. I think it was lowercase. I'll have to double check this. I could add that in. Is that one not letting me do that one? Oh no, I have to do an array. Sorry. There we go. So when I add that in, I could potentially add that in. I wouldn't do this code like this, but if as you add it in, you can do it like that. And then if you want to add in another variable, you can add in another variable based on where you got that from. So this is my data set, and I added this model. If I were to add in on manage fields, if I were to add in another field, I'm just adding this in just to show you, a dealership. I would find that element, and yeah, so I would add this in, let's say Toronto. I'll do that, and then here I'll click, hang on a second, I'll click apply, and then I'll click add variable. Let's see if I need to reload. So I can see model, I can see Hang on a second, I think I need to reload, refresh, reload. And then I should be able to see it. So from Wix SEO settings, I go to structured data markup. I can see the image. Okay. I can see that we have model, and then I have dealership. So I added those two in there. So that's in there. And that comes from this page, for instance. And then on this one, and so yeah, that's where you get that one. I have another element. If you don't have that particular type of dynamic page, I have another page, and I'll link that in the documentation that shows how you can add dynamic pages, structured data from the help documentation. I have a link to that later as well. But it's really, really useful, and it allows you to create things there. Another thing that's useful when you're using this is if you try to check your code before you launch it, then you will run into trickiness if you copy and paste it out of the Wix tool. If you've ever experienced that, I think Connor might have experienced that. It's a little bit annoying, but ChatGPT can come to your rescue. So essentially, if you pop it into like a structured data validator, it'll go, I don't know what you mean, But if you give the prompt, can you prettify this code? It will, and it will prettify it, and it will say, oh, I've prettified this code. And prettified is a technical term. I know it sounds silly, but it is. And it will prettify the code for you, and it will take out all of the gaps, and then you can run it through, and it will be able to see what you did. Another one is the Wix IDE. I don't know if people have used this within Wix Studio, but it's super awesome. And basically the interface, again, I will come out of this and it will be super beautiful. Reload. Okay, it's going to reload while I show you this. So basically you have options for creating code, you have options for saving code, you can see all of your code, but there's also an AI assistant, which is actually pretty rad. And if you ask it to create something like, can you help me create job posting? It will give you an example of job posting, particularly for Velo, unless you ask specifically for JSON LD. And it will also give you information at the like variables. So it will say like, this is a fantastic opportunity to la la la, your company name, your city, your state. It gives you that sort of guidance, which is useful. So like it's making up the information, but it's very clear that it's making up the information. So it's not tricky to find it. When I was talking about that video and blog posting schema, for instance, sometimes what you might find if you go to a new client, is that they have lots of different bits of schema, right? So they've got the blog posting, they've got the video, they've got an author, or they've got a something, and it's all bitty in like lots of different places. So what I did in this particular instance was I asked the IDE, I said, can you combine this schema into one for a blog posting with an embedded video, right? And it said, and then it says, to help fix this code, tell me about any errors you're having. I said, both pieces are valid, but I would like to combine them for efficiency. And what it gave me was this, which pulls through both of them, and allows you to reduce the amount of time that you have in there. Let me just see. So for instance, so what I did was I went to, so here I can see it validated here. And it's coming through. Oh yeah, here we go. So here we have it validated and it's coming through. So on this one, this is two different script tags. So this is one script tag here, and this is one script tag here, and this one is one script tag all the way through. And it's got the two things working, but it's got them coming through as well. So that's a lot more efficient, and things. And essentially you have it when you're looking at it, you can ask it to look up documentation within Wix. So you could ask it to look up some of the schema variables that you need. It can ask you to fix your code, et cetera, et cetera. I'm conscious that we're running out of time, and I don't know if there's other questions as well. Should we jump to questions, or can I keep going, or?
Yeah, I think Crystal, if you want to spend like maybe a couple more minutes on some of this content, we can get to questions. Okay. I know there's just a handful that we're still waiting on, but let's power through, and then we can answer them. And if we don't get to everyone's questions, we're happy. I've logged all of them, so we're happy to get those answers back to you guys. Okay. And then this one is the schema marker generator. This is just a shout out to those ones, and this is the way that you can do that as well. And then these are some of the resources. So I've got lots of resources here. This one is particularly useful. This is my complete guide to structured data, which is on the Wix SEO Learning Hub. And it talks about all the things about structured data and goes through all of the different benefits, etc. It's also useful if you want to share it with clients. And then I also have this one about structured data validation, which talks about all of the different ways you can validate it, and goes through lots of different examples and common issues that we see with structured data when people are trying to go through all of that sort of stuff. So that's really useful as well. And I think with that, I think we can go to questions, if that's okay. Awesome. Yeah, I've got a couple in the chat, and we can kind of go in order here and answer them as is. Let's see here. It looks like Barry did have a question about what structured data Wix advises to add that's not automatically added. That example was breadcrumbs. So are there a handful that we say this must be added versus maybe nice to have? Yeah, so in terms of breadcrumbs, breadcrumbs are, in terms of rich results, are low value structured data.
In terms of rich results, they're low value because Google used to only give you breadcrumb rich results if you had breadcrumb structured data. They now give breadcrumb structured data to lots of people, whether they have structured data or not. So if you would like to have them in order to give Google a better understanding of the structure of your site, that's great. I have some on my own. On my own site, and I've implemented that using Velo. So you can do that, but in terms of whether or not it's going to move the needle, it's a little bit, I'd say it's low on the totem pole.
Okay.
When you think about which structured data you need, think about what will make you competitive, and also what will make your content most disambiguated. So make your content most clear and help you. Somebody asked if it's the same as H tags, and H tags are like header tags, H1s, H2s. H tags are technically structured data. Bulleted lists are technically structured data. Schema markup is slightly different, but basically, when you have it, it's the things you want to bring to the fore, like the things that are most important about your page.
Great answer. Next question was from Juliet. Do Wix reviews pull through to Wix store markup? Same with Wix FAQ app. Does that produce FAQ markup?
So FAQ markup has been pretty much deprecated by Google. So they pretty much only put out rich results for FAQs for big websites like the Mayo Clinic and the CDC and things like that. So most people are not going to be getting FAQ markup. You are eligible for rich results markup with with the Wix FAQ, but you're unlikely to see it on the SERP. Should we use local business schema into all service pages? So local business schema is included as soon as you add in your local business details into your page. But what you can do, for instance, is I think by default when we have Wix, let me see if I can show it. So by default we have information that says that says like your that says organization in the structured data. So for instance, like on your product pages, it will say that you have that the seller is an organization. If you want to change that from organization to local business, you totally can. That won't break your schema. It will make your schema more specific, and it will help. Like for instance, if you were selling like Niagara Falls memorabilia and you are based in Niagara Falls, then it makes sense for you to be a local business in that instance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great answer. Let's see here. It looks like a couple more. Dave had asked, you showed websites like Rotten Tomatoes and Nestle had large successes with structured data. Those are very interactive visual websites dealing with movies and recipes. Are there situations that work much better than others when it comes to utilizing structured data? An 80-20 rule, when to where to use it always. For example, let's see here, maybe always use it for FAQs or for homepage of local businesses, but other service pages or about pages aren't as privy to structured data success.
I can explain that a little bit better. Sorry. Just meaning like there's a lot of information here, of course, and I want to find out what's the best bang for your buck. You know, if we have a website that's 50 pages, are 48 of them never gonna, really do well with structured data, even if we try hard? So is it like situational aspects that we should really focus on, like products or like FAQ or something like that?
Yeah. So as I said in the slide that I showed of which ones are most important to you. So in terms of priority, things that make you money should have structured data on them, right? So if you are selling stuff, you should have structured data on those pages. If you are a consultancy and you sell the things in your brain, right? You're a law firm and you have all these people who know all this stuff and people ask them for support, you should have structured data on their pages. Okay. If you are doing content and that's the way that your business is, that's the most important part of your business, that should have structured data on it. Your about page should have structured data on it. In terms of visibility, there are some industries, and I think I shared this in my doc, but this is why I highlighted them. Like there are pay attention to this section. Like this is super useful. if you're doing events, you have to have structured data. If you don't have structured data, you're not in the game, because this is what people see when they look for events. If you are doing courses, you should have structured data, because people are seeing this and this is super eye-catching. It's also mobile optimization, because on mobile, it's way easier to click a big old square than it is to click a tiny little thing. Jobs. I got into structured data because I had a recruitment client, and Google for Jobs came in, and all the traffic disappeared because we didn't have structured data. So suddenly I had to learn all this stuff. So it was really, so in that situation, it's non-negotiable. If you, and so it's really important to have that there. Recipes is another one. If you Google like, gosh, what is it? I think it was like, no. It used to, so recipes, rich results were one of the first ones that they did. And now if you go and look for a Google recipes schema, like that's what shows up. It's the first thing. So if you're doing recipes, you have to, like, you almost always have to have rich results, unless you have like 7 million YouTube followers, then you don't have to worry about it. But I would say that the rich results stuff is top of the pile. Anything that gets you rich results is top of the pile. After that, anything that helps you to make it really, really clear what you do, and helps you to helps it to make it clear what anyone does. We're really lucky to be part of the like Wix crew, because Wix prioritizes a lot of those money pages, but you can help us help you by using the right page types, and making sure that when you're using anything that has automated structured data, that you have as much on the page and as much as part of the page as possible. So for instance, on the Wix videos, there's lots of fields for that. On Wix events, there's lots of fields for that. So make sure that you have like that you fill in everything, and that it's super accurate. If you fill in all the bits, then it will make sure that it makes sense. For local business, for instance, if you fill in all of those elements and you make sure that they're all legit and they're all correct and they're all working well, then that will do really, really well. For local businesses in particular, that local business information is really, really valuable, as well as your Google business profile, and they work together really well.
That was a follow-up question that I was going to post here. Does markup affect your Google Merchant page?
So Google Merchant and Google and structured data for your products are slightly different. Google, when you look in Google Merchant and you look in your feed, if you look up a single product, it will show you where Google's gotten the information about it. So if they'd had like, you know, brass earrings for women, $7.93 or something like that, some of that might come from the structured data on your page. Some of that might come from the feed. But if you have products, and it's super simple now on Wix, you can connect, like, make sure that you're connecting your Google Merchant Center data feed to your Wix website. If you have not done that, you must do that. Like, absolutely. And so make sure that's done, because that will also give you information about some of the additional values. When you validate, and again, that's why I spent so much time on that validation article, but when you validate a page, like a product page, you for products, there are certain things that are must-haves for Google Merchant Center that are not the same as the must-haves for a product rich result. Okay. So for instance, I think it's like gender, you have to declare the gender of the item, for instance, for any kind of clothing on Google Merchant Center. And it's not that big a deal on for Google Shopping, because for the Google product feed, because they don't know whether it's you know, apparel or whether it's not apparel. They're just talking about general shopping things. So make sure that you go through that. And to be more competitive for products, the more you fill in those orange warning things, the more you fill in those like nice to have ones, the more accurate and the more competitive you will be, because Google's asking you those things for a question or for a reason. Additionally, it's worth thinking, and this is why I said about how you plan your pages. It's worth looking at some of the schema markup and some of the questions and some of the required properties that Google asks for on that structured data gallery page, and making sure that you, like, using it as a tick box for your product page. Like, do I have this? Do I have that? Have I put this? Have I done that? And for any of those articles, it can really, really guide you on what you need to do. And in terms of offering to clients, you know, we mentioned Eventbrite or whatever, but like I personally done, you know, schema updates where, you know, I saw an 80% increase in organic for Recruiter. These are small businesses. Recruiter, I saw 30% increase in ranking in 3 months for B2B services, 70% increase in ranking keywords, like 35% increase in revenue. Like Schema makes a big difference. And it is super valuable and really useful.
Amazing. Awesome. Yeah. Last 2 questions. I know we're a little bit over, so thanks everybody for hanging in here. This one, Crystal, you'll probably know the answer to. Can I add multiple schema markups on one page?
Yeah, so that was the example I showed. I showed the blog with the video. So you can add that to it. You can also use a tool to help you nest it. So you can say this video is part of this blog. You know, and you can say like, and you can have like blog contains video, and then you can add the video schema to that. You can say it's author of, etc. So all of the types are like dependent on each other. So you'll have a type that has part of another thing. So you would say like this blog was written by, and the author might be an organization, and then you would put the organization schema as well. But you can also just add schema on top of each other. So it's super common. If you find that you've got a little bit of code bloat, you might want to combine them. But most of the time it's not a big deal.
Okay,
And-
great. Yeah, I think back in the day when I was playing around in the editor, there's a certain number that you can add default. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah, there's up to 5 pieces of structured data. Those like stack on top of each other, maximum 5. And then I believe it's also a 7,000 character limit. So if you fall within either of those, you're good to go.
There's also like I should have said this. I meant to share this. You can also add schema into other parts as well, and then you can get around some of those things. So if you add the schema into Velo, then that's slightly different. That's a slightly different count from if you add it into the one on the SEO tools as well. So yeah.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah, I think the last question was from Adam. Standard process for his agency looks like alter the standard Wix product page, meaning that we keep the actual page, but collapse or hide the elements and rebuild them using Velo and Wix elements. Will the structured data remain on this page, or would I need to restructure the data?
So you're muting the default and you're rebuilding it in Velo. Is that what you're saying?
And Adam, if you want to come off of mute, feel free.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I'm interested as to why. Because I think sometimes it's like in terms of like code priority, it might be easier to just use the SEO settings. But why?
So a lot of the time, to simply match the design of the rest of the site.
Okay.
So we might have like a really nice curved edge on an image throughout the site, and we want to maintain that on that page.
Got you. Okay, so the question is, will it change it? So very often if you change one part of the page, I'd have to probably check this one, but very often if you change one part of the page in Velo, it overrides the things that are in the default. So for instance, if you change the canonical tag via Velo, then it will override the canonical tag that's injected by default, for instance. So I would presume that if you've muted it anyway, then it'll be gone. Like so that's what I would do. What you don't want is both codes loading at the same time, because that will slow down your page. So I would pick one. Pick one, and that should work best for you. And again, validate it again. I use multiple validators. As you see, I flipped through a few of them and I linked to all of them. But validate them. If it's valid on all of them, then it definitely works. And I don't know if I shared this, but I will share it now. There's a great tool. I did share it, but I'll show it to you. Let me see, before we go. This one's super useful. I use it all the time. So this one, and this is an example, and this was, I don't know why I have local business, I was testing something. But yeah, you can see this has a bunch of this one. This is a Chrome extension from Marketing Syrup. I use it all the time. It tells you lots and lots of SEO stuff in one section. It's super useful, and it tells you your schema. So one of the things you can do is you can test it, like publish the page, just go and click on this little thing, see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you can go back straight away, and you don't have to like run a crawl and do all of the things. And it just sits in your Chrome area as well. It's a super, super useful tool. Highly
And
recommend.
this one, Crystal, also is really good for competitor research. It does not have to be your own
No.
website or URL. You can pop in,
Yeah.
really anything and see how, see how the H tags are formatted, see the structured data,
Yeah.
pretty much everything that has to do with the website. So this is really great if you're working with a client, maybe even before you get to starting any project with them, either SEO related or not. You can see how they're ranking, see the H tags that they're using, see the schema that they're using, so that you can actually go and Kali, that is Marketing Syrup. You can Google Marketing Syrup Chrome extension, and it should take you to the web page or like the Google Chrome. Yeah, thank you, Sean. But yeah, really good tool to use when you're starting to work with clients. When I was a success manager, I advised all my partners to use that tool. It's a really, really helpful thing to know where they're currently at, to be able to set a benchmark so that obviously you can prove the work that you're doing down the road. Awesome.
So yeah, I hope that was helpful. I know I went really quickly. And thanks.
Yeah, I just want to say to everyone, thank you so much for coming. I hope you're leaving with a lot more information than you did previously. As I said, kind of in the beginning, we will send out this recording to everyone that showed up. We'll share the resources. I think we'll also share the deck just so that you guys can get in and play around with all of those tools. Couple of final notes here. Keep your eye on the SEO Hub. We will be launching a brand new SEO course. That's going to be really helpful for going through a lot of the stuff that we covered, in addition to more. There's a lot of content there. It'll probably be launched. I think the landing page will be launched next week. Obviously, so keep your eye on that. Follow Crystal. She's, like I said, she's got a ton of really awesome resources on her blog, the SEO Hub as well. So I just want to say thank you, Crystal, so much. And Sean, thank you so much. And everybody that showed up. And last reminder, if you do have a success manager, reach out to them if you have some specific questions about SEO use cases. And then, like I said, Sean also hosts those one-on-one product advisor consultation sessions. So, not that he's already super busy, but make sure to use that resource.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for. For any SEO, Wix product questions, for any general best practice questions, like Connor said, feel free to reach out to your success managers. Happy to hop on a call, answer any of those types of questions I can. And yeah, looking forward to having those one-on-one sessions.
Amazing. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you in future sessions like this.